deeper. Start off with the front page of the PD. Now Kinoti and Haji clash over Manduku case. Who's the toughest? The PD asks. Director of Public Prosecutions declines to charge KPA and KRA bosses after head of criminal investigation produces the two in court, illustrating the heightening supremacy wars between the two powerful officers. This is a story between the fracturing in the relationship between these two. Had been highlighted earlier in the week. Some people said, well, they're just working, but it seems like the cracks are definitely beginning to show in this particular instance, and that's a story that the PD has front and center in their daily this morning. Also on the front page of the PD, 4 senators stranded in Germany due to corona lockdown. That's a story that you can get right there, and plenty more. As we always say, Kenya's #1 free newspaper is the PD, so get it and get fully informed. Front page of the Daily Nation, it's all about matters BBI. Big test for BBI, no cash for referendum, the Daily Nation says. Policy statement has provided only 4.6 billion shillings for the Electoral Commission's operations in 2020-2021. That's a key question right there. But also a development as far as the BBI rallies is concerned. Yesterday revealed that there will only be one joint rally for the North and Central Rift. That will happen in Nakuru. So there's no Eldoret stop for the BBI rally. Very many questions as to why that might have happened, what might have informed that particular decision. The governor not even calling a presser. He put it up on Facebook for that particular information. It's a story that we'll be talking about right here on the show as well. Front page of the Standard, it's the same story between the clash of the giants, as the Standard puts it. Tensions between DPP Haji and DCI boss George Kinoti boil over in court after prosecutor disowns charges drafted by investigators against KPA boss, prompting magistrates to set the suspects free. That story can be found in your copy of The Standard. In your Star, lawyers, politicians probed over Somalia. Speaker rules that 11 MPs who met President Farmajo did not break the law. State wants to know what links Somali leaders have with Mogadishu, though. And as this goes on, the MPs are also requesting audience with President Uhuru Kenyatta, as they say they have a goodwill message for the president as well, and much more on that. And that's a story that the Star has for you this morning. Also on the front page of the Star, a picture of Nairobi City yesterday. The big question of where was all the garbage coming from? Shame of stinking Nairobi City. The Star puts it right there in the picture just to show and illustrate what the state of the city was as of yesterday. A pile of garbage that has accumulated blocking the road in Shauri Moyo Estate. And this was seen in different areas of the city, and it's a key issue of concern right there, and it's been covered by the Star this morning. Finally, front page of the Business Daily, AG6 phones homes of firms' secret investors. Say demands identities of shareholders owning more than 10% stakes in firms. That's a story that you can get in your copy of your Business Daily this morning. So clearly a lot for us to discuss this morning. We love your views as well. You can tweet us at K24 TV. You can also SMS us. Our line is 21222. Let me get to my panel as we introduce them and get into the big stories of the day. Today joined by Saboti MP Caleb Amisi. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Thank you. For the first time, Dr. Njoki Ngumi, Director of Outreach and Partnerships at the Nest. Good morning.
Morning, Jeff.
Welcome to the show.
Asante.
We also have Chair of the CIOC, MP Daragwa as well, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Welcome to the show.
Asante sana.
Let's start off with the story that's on the front page of two of our daily this morning. Clearly, a lot of questions being asked as far as what's going on between the DPP and the DCI. Before this, when they were fresh in office, because they came in relatively at the same time, there was a lot of camaraderie. You could see them together. They were doing joint pressers, and people thought that even their backgrounds, having both been from the NIS, clearly this was a step in the right direction. But Honorable Amisi, why are the cracks beginning to show now? What is there that we're not seeing with this particular relationship?
Yeah, I don't think this is an unprecedented scenario, because it always happens that people are bound to have different approaches towards the offices they occupy. So I don't think it is the right time to, to deeper into what is happening, and maybe it's just emanating from one case where, the case of Manduku, where he was presented to court without any charge sheet.
Right.
So it may even be an oversight or something, some kind of, a charge that is not yet ready. But I think we may have taken it out of context and pronounced it so loudly.
So you don't.
So I don't want to, dig too much. I think it's just a normal oversight between. So maybe we give them time, because there has not been any other occasion that we can say they are not working together, or there is squabbles, or there is no, they are not in a synergy. So I think this is reading too much into it. Yeah.
Let me get to Dr. Njoki on this one as well, because some people are saying that the investigations on the KPA boss had happened for 6 months plus, so clearly they knew this was a big case as well. The case is supposed to go to court. There's a lot of back and forth between the two offices. By the time it gets to court, the DPP is saying there's no charge sheet, we're not going to prosecute this case. Where does this leave, the fight against corruption? Because these are the golden boys. We knew these are the ones who are going to take us to Canaan in terms of the fight against corruption. Are we going to get there?
I mean, first of all, we need to understand that the state is a large and sprawling thing, and that these are all intrastate, cross-state discussions, and that these people know themselves better than we know them. So as regards what's actually happening, of course, it's only them who know. The second thing is that I'm not a believer in this narrative of the savior, that there is one person or two people who are going to come and take us to some sort of promised land, because Kenyans have already had this discussion about how deeply corruption and alternative, I want to euphemize it at this point in time, alternative ways of getting things that are not due process is woven into the ways in which we understand states, simply because we've been failed so many times by systems, and so people have had to find ways over many years to take care of themselves and to take care of the people around them. I'm not justifying corruption. I'm saying that it exists in a context. And so I'm not going to say that the fight against corruption or the war against corruption has failed because of this. I do think that legally, and as far as due process is concerned, the DPP must know what he's doing. If he is acting out of time, then that will be discovered at some point, and that this, of course, can come back even with this unconditional release, because it's always possible to repeat charges and things like that. So again, I'm not a legal expert, but I would agree with Mheshimiwa that reading too deeply into this, and also this kind of narrative, pitting these two people against each other, is the way in which we are used to framing political disputes, political conflicts, political tensions. Immediately two people disagree, it's now a big deal, everything becomes a scandal. And for me, I think that the media should take a step back with framing like that, instead of, and focus instead on giving Kenyans all of these details. The details of this investigation that was 6 months in the making, for instance. What reasoning, because it must be written down somewhere, that the DPP has used to make his decisions, because that must be sound reasoning, otherwise he wouldn't be in his position. And if it is not sound reasoning, then we need legal experts to tell us why. So I would focus much more on that than on this kind of masculinized, Mortal Kombat scandalization of what can very well be a normal legal dispute. Okay. And we've seen the shift of blame happen when it comes to the fight against corruption. Honorable Kioni, I'll come to you because luckily you're also a lawyer as well, so you can weigh in on this. Because we've heard the president talk about the judiciary being the weak link in terms of fighting corruption. The CJ says it's not us, it's the evidence that's brought before us. So if the DCI doesn't give us proper evidence for the DPP, we'll only judge upon the evidence that's brought in the court. Yet here we are with a suspect who was brought in without even a charge sheet. Was this set to fail from the beginning as they went there? Because surely they knew that was a basic minimum for this trial even to start.
I think they wanted the public to know. One of them wanted the public to know, and I think the DCI wanted the public to know that all is not well. And this has been on for a while in some quarters. It was clear to some of us that all is not well. In the relationship between the two offices, the officers. And I think it's a good thing that it has come out. We knew that files are taking a little longer in the DPP's office. Of course, he has reasons for it. He has always said that he wants to satisfy himself as to whether the cases need to proceed or more investigation is required. I'm told there are times he would ask for more investigations, and he would say that the DCI would say that we already have enough, proceed to court. So there is something that needs to be sorted out between the two. And the good thing is that one is that we had this multi-agency approach. So I expect the president to weigh in on this, and very, very quickly. I'm sure it cannot go beyond the end of the day before that is sorted out. Two, we have the parliamentary committee that oversight these agencies. I expect them to be called to try and explain why this is happening. But on the whole is that it's not a good thing for those of us who would want to see the war on corruption you know, apt as opposed to being dampened by some of these things. Like it's been said many times, corruption fights back. You don't want to think that there is anything more than just disagreements on how they handle the cases. But it is important for them to realize that those who have taken us through the long route will be very happy to see this happening, and will do everything possible to amplify it. And I think that's why I agree with Dr. that even as the media, as we bring it out, let's not overplay it, but they should know that what they did yesterday is not a good thing.
Right. And I just want to jump onto that as well, even as I bounce back to Dr. on this one, because we're coming to it from a point of view where we've seen very many high-profile arrests. That has not been in short of supply. We've seen it was a Kamata Friday. It became a thing. But beyond that, we haven't seen the successful prosecution of these particular cases, or convictions, or asset recovery. And that's why people are asking, if at that particular point, when they were at their best, we didn't get to the end of any of these high-profile cases, what does that mean now, as they expose each other's nakedness, for lack of a better word?
I mean, I think even the use of that term, exposing one another's nakedness, I would take issue with. I think the arrests were obviously a good start. People had always said for a very long time that people of a certain caliber, of a certain socioeconomic class, of certain levels of influence within society were completely immune from arrest. And the arrests are a good visual. But it's not just visuals we need. Kenyans need money returned to public coffers. Kenyans need to see that money not even just returning to public coffers, because we also know that public coffers have had a reputation of porosity. And so what we want to see is not only this kind of defeat of the large-scale corruption. We want to see the returns of that being plowed back into our lives and making our lives easier, increasing our quality of life, going into our schools, going into bursaries for kids to go to school, paying for all these health issues that you're seeing people are forever raising money for, because it's not going to be sustainable where citizens are always raising money for other citizens too, because what's going to happen when you know, when push comes to shove. And so it's not, for me, it's not even just can the case get finished and can somebody be found guilty and can they go to jail. It's what did they take? Has the state repossessed it? Has the money gone very tangibly back into the functions of state that have to do with taking care of the people of Kenya?
Right. I want us to shift gears from this particular story, because it is developing and we'll see how this particular case plays out. It's also covered in your standard as well. It's a front page story there. You can get it if you want to read more on it. I want us to move to page 5 of the People Daily. Lawmakers furious. CS's snub invite. 3 ministers failed to appear before MPs and senators to explain measures taken to tackle coronavirus. One of them said the health CS was having their first cabinet meeting. He wasn't available for that, so they couldn't be found. That's what was happening for that particular one. The other couldn't even tell where the PS was, because the CAS was the one who was there. The PS wasn't available, and the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Health Ministry did not know where the PS was at the time. So a lot of disconnect right there. The MPs furious say they're going to report this case to the speakers of the House for gross misconduct. This isn't the first time we've had this happen in terms of the House summoning CSs, and they're usually too busy to make it for that particular day. How do they get teeth to bite? Because it happens. We've seen this with different ministers, different scenarios, yet it's the same thing that plays out, Caleb.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate, because the law requires that any ministry delegation that is reporting before a committee of parliament to be led by the CS, the PS, or most recently that we had a speaker's directive that even the CAS can lead them. But you know, the primary responsibility of any government or any regime is to protect its citizens. And this is at this point in time when we have the threats of coronavirus. This is actually the time that we do not want a CS or a PS to have an excuse whatsoever to appear before a committee. Because this is what the Kenyans are worried of, this is what the Kenyans are waiting for, these are directives. The world all over, you see the ministers giving daily briefs on how the cases of coronavirus and how the government is tackling it. And recently, I think yesterday, we also saw a directive from the court that the government must be responsible to the citizens in terms of daily updates on how they are tackling and how they are planning to tackle this so that we do not get at the center of it. So it is quite irresponsible for CS at this particular time. Any other circumstances you can be excused. But at a time when Kenyans are anxious, Kenyans are waiting, they want to know, do we have any cases reported so far? Are we cancelling flights? So maybe people want to travel and they want to know what are the government planning. I mean, businesses are closing down. Companies are laying off people, giving people paid leave. So this is a time when even the economy can come to a standstill. It is a responsibility of the government, led by the topmost. At this particular time, you can have excuse at any other circumstances, but at this particular time, when coronavirus is really the talk of the world, the different countries are coming up with different measures. So we also need to know as a country what measures have we put in place to secure our citizens, so that citizens we do not live in constant fear. We have fear of attack. Recently, we had an alert from the U.S. Embassy. So we have fears all over our life. We have the fear that we can be attacked anytime. We have fear that coronavirus. Sometimes I thank God, without sounding sadistic, that it started where the countries are well developed. What if it started in Africa? We'll all be wiped out. So we sometimes thank God that it started elsewhere, and we have a chance. We have a chance as a country to prevent us and to protect us from, getting close to this virus, because it will be deadly and it will wipe us all. So it is irresponsible leadership that the CS and the PSS have shown, even without clear explanation, without satisfactory answers to the members of parliament. These are leaders who represent the people, and probably the leaders, the constituents, they want answers. We represent people. We need to go back and tell our people what is happening and how we've been able to assure them of their lives. So recently I was in Abari and I was able, confronted with this issue of coronavirus, that what is the government doing about it? The people down there in Mashinani are worried. So it is a responsibility of the leader, and remember, this is a primary responsibility of any government, to protect its citizens, including now showing the measures you have to protect them. The people need to go, about their lives, knowing that we are safe. People are abroad, because there are cases of Kenyans who are in China. They are stranded. We are caught in between. Should we bring them back or should we leave them there? There are families who are worried of them, So these are issues that are matter of life and death. Yeah, we shouldn't make any mistake about it.
Jockey, let me come to you as well on this, because even from a medical stance, we've seen how this virus has spread in just a span of 30 days, how fast it moved. So clearly it's a global concern on this particular one. The task force has now banned flights from northern Italy, I think, because that was also a hotspot as far as this is concerned. Have they done enough on that particular one? Should they be left to work first instead of appearing before this particular committee? What's your take on it? Because they're saying they're working as hard as they can with the resources that they have right now.
I want to pick up from where Mheshimiwa left off and kind of talk about this whole idea of the MPs needing to know and needing to hear directly from the state designated technocrats who are the experts in this area, and that obviously the people who've been summoned, whether it's health, transport, because we had the issue of the flight from China, and the flight from China came after everybody knew what the situation was in China. We know about our students and their fellow Kenyans who are in China and in Wuhan specifically. We knew all of that even before the flight came. And so there's an explanation there that the public don't have, and that if the public don't have it and their elected representatives cannot give it to them, then we have a problem. And as regards that, I want to speak to the idea of due process. We cannot create a situation where the MPs have to go and use their own words to comfort the people, because they've not really heard from the people who've been summoned by the parliamentary committee. The MPs need to know what to go back and say, because the people are going to ask the MPs, they're going to ask their senators, they're going to ask their governors, they're going to ask the women reps. And so if there's no one government voice, then it's very easy either for now the MP to be looked at as though they're not doing anything for the people, or even for them to now go the other way and make something up, then now you find rumors start spreading. And Mheshimiwa had already spoken to the idea of this kind of fomenting fears. And that Kenya was not necessarily in a good place even before all of these tragedies came along. The economy was already suffering. And then now we are hearing the issue of terror. Now there's also this medical issue. So as far as due process is concerned, any attempts that flout due process in general, not even only in response to a crisis, because I worry sometimes that we only think as regards crisis response, but we need processes that work properly such that even during crisis they're smooth. And if they're not able to come during a crisis, it begs the question whether they go for parliamentary summons at other times, and whether those communications between the state-sanctioned technocrats and the people's representatives are working properly, which also then would explain the issues as regards communication both amongst themselves and with the people. That's why you'll hear one MP goes in one place, says one thing, another MP goes in one place, says another thing, a CS stands and addresses the people, they say something completely different. And then now that leaves the media having reported all three things, and then Kenyans are given all three things, and then nobody knows what to think. So when it comes to due process and crisis response, we have to be a little bit more careful. I want to speak to the idea of the opportunity to do this humanely and ethically. I worried very deeply when the papers the other day talked about hunting down the 239 people who came on the flight. Listen, these 239 people didn't ask to come from a place that was a hot spot for coronavirus infection. They didn't ask for that. They didn't ask to be. They didn't ask for any of this. And that if we had been following due process from the very beginning, it would have been very easy to quarantine them upon arrival. It should have been very easy to make sure that we have their details, make sure that we, if things were being done properly, but they were not. Right? And so even this kind of late move to say, okay, now we don't want any flights from Italy. We had to wait until we saw somebody from Italy land in Nigeria, then now we make our decisions. When this country is known for excellent health policy, we are known for swift responses in regards to some of these things. It was Kenyans who went to deal with the Ebola breakout because we knew what we were doing. As far as health, we were really on top, and especially not only on the continent, but comparatively, even globally. There are things that we know and we do well. And so why we are not doing that, and why then this is being turned into some sort of inter-parliamentary kerfuffle is beyond my understanding, because the people who need to understand exactly what's going on are the citizens of Kenya. And that ourselves as a government, there are ways in which we can handle this thing properly, and we can do communication to the public properly, and even treat people who we think could be infection risks. We can still treat them well. We can still treat them like human beings. We can still treat them like they have the human rights which we espouse in our constitution.
When you talk about those human rights, very quickly before I come to Kioni because of our break, when you talk about self-quarantine, how does that work? Because we're talking about it from a point of view where Njoki came from Wuhan. She's been told to self-quarantine for 14 days, as is the period. But if she goes home and does that for 14 days, probably has a brother, probably has someone else in the house who's not quarantined as well. What's that all about? I
mean, I don't want to say that that was a statement that was wanting as regards logic and as regards sense, because also if you have people who've come here to do business, they're going to do business. If you've had people who've come here to see their families, they're going to see their families. The idea of self-quarantining in a home or even in a hotel room where you have to have contact with people, you're going to have contact, even if, let's say, you're in a hotel room, because this is the ideal situation, you're in an enclosed space by yourself, you're still going to have contact with the people who bring your food. You're still going to have contact with the people who are coming to make your bed. You're not going to be wearing a mask every second of every day. You're not going to be standing in the balcony and refusing to talk to other human beings for 14 days straight. This idea of self-quarantining involves an amount of free will and motivation to not do the things that brought you to a place, and that we know travel is expensive, doing business is expensive. Nobody's going to just kind of look into the sky for 14 days and wait. And that even that waiting for 14 days doesn't really tell you whether you have the virus or not, because it will either progress or not. You see, and that we are also, as Kenyans and as people who do business, we are used to like standing up and moving. Even so long as you're not in a hospital bed, you've not been admitted, you're fine. And we are like that. We're just that way because we have to be. And so this idea that people were going to self-quarantine, I think, was wanting from the very beginning. Okay. And the people who decided that it was a good idea are the ones you should be asking a few questions at this point. Let's take a short break at that particular point in time. We'll come back and pick it up from there as far as Honorable Kioni is concerned. Also, we'll be shifting gears and looking at what happened yesterday in terms of the statement that was made on Facebook by the governor of Nakuru about the BBI rally being postponed. It'll happen on the 21st of March, and there'll only be one for the North Rift and the Central Rift. Eldoret will be left out. There had been intimations of that before. Now it's firmly confirmed. Discuss that and more after the break.